In an era when Israel had no king, God raised a woman of immense wisdom named Deborah. She was a mother, a prophetess, and a beacon of hope. To understand Deborah, one must understand her role as a prophetess. In ancient times, this meant she was the bridge between the people's cries and God's voice. She also served as a judge. This wasn't a modern courtroom. It was a place of restoration where she settled disputes and guided the spiritual heart of the nation. For 20 long years, Israel had been crushed under the weight of King Jabin of Canaan. The people were too afraid to walk the main roads of their own land. King Jabin was a ruler who believed in the power of iron and fear. He exploited the division between the Israelite tribes, ensuring they remained weak and scattered. Jabin's strength lay in his commander Sisera, and a terrifying military advantage: 900 iron chariots. To the Israelites, who only had wooden tools, this was invincible power. The oppression was more than physical. It was a weight on the soul. The people finally cried out to God, and God answered through the woman under the palm. In the stillness of the morning, the word of the Lord came to Deborah. It was a message of war, but also a message of absolute certainty. Deborah was also a wife, married to a man named Lapidoth. In a society where men usually led, her family stood as a testament to her unique calling and character. Deborah sent for Barak, a commander from the north. The summons was clear. The God of Israel had a command that could no longer wait for a more convenient time. Barak traveled from the north, wondering why the prophetess had summoned him. He lived in the shadow of the Canaanites, seeing their iron chariots patrol the valleys every day. When they finally met, the atmosphere was thick with the weight of the moment. Deborah did not waste time with small talk. She spoke the words of the Lord. "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you? Go, gather 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them to Mount Tabor." To a military man like Barak, this sounded like a death sentence. He knew the Israelites had no iron, no chariots, and no formal training to face Sisera's elite. Barak made a bold request. "If you will go with me, I will go," he told her. "But if you will not go with me, I will not go." In ancient times, a prophet's presence on the battlefield was a sign that God was leading the charge. Barak wasn't being a coward. He was seeking spiritual assurance. "I will go with you," Deborah replied. "But because of the way you are going about this, the honor of the victory will not belong to you. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman," she declared. Barak did not know it then, but she wasn't talking about herself. And so the judge left her palm tree. For the first time in 20 years, an Israelite leader was marching toward the enemy rather than hiding from them. Their journey would take them through dangerous territory, avoiding the main roads where Sisera's scouts were known to lurk, moving with the quiet desperation of a revolution. Word reached the northern tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. The prophetess had come to lead them, and the spark of hope ignited a fire that had been dormant for 20 years. 10,000 men answered the call. These were not professional soldiers, but farmers and shepherds who were tired of living in fear of King Jabin's heavy iron hand. The shofar blast signaled the gathering at Mount Tabor. This mountain was a strategic sanctuary. Its steep, rocky slopes were the one place Sisera's iron chariots could not climb. Throughout the night, Deborah moved among the men. She didn't speak of military tactics, but of the covenant of God, reminding them that their strength was not in their weapons. But they were being watched. Haber the Kenite, who lived nearby, sent word to Sisera. The secret uprising was no longer a secret, and the enemy was already moving. Sisera laughed at the news. To him, 10,000-foot soldiers on a mountain were nothing more than cornered sheep waiting for the slaughter by his iron wheels. Sisera summoned all 900 of his iron chariots. To the human eye, it was an invincible force. The valley floor groaned under the weight of so much metal. From the heights of the mountain, the Israelites saw the massive army gathering. Fear began to ripple through the ranks as the sun glinted off Sisera's iron wheels below. Deborah saw his heart waver once more. She knew that in this moment the battle would be won or lost in the mind before a single sword was drawn. "This is the day!" Deborah cried out. "Does not the Lord go out before you?" She was calling him to see the invisible army that marched alongside them. With Deborah's words ringing in his ears, Barak gave the command. The Israelite army abandoned the safety of the heights and charged headlong into the teeth of the enemy. To any observer, it looked like a massacre in the making. Foot soldiers with wooden shields were running directly into the path of heavy, horse-drawn iron machines of war. Sisera deployed his chariots across the plain, intending to use their speed to mow down the Israelites. He trusted in his iron, forgetting that the earth and sky belonged to God. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A supernatural storm broke over the valley. This was no ordinary rain. It was a flood of divine proportions sent to level the playing field. The very advantage Sisera relied on became his trap. The heavy iron chariots, designed for speed on dry ground, sank into the mud, becoming useless, heavy anchors. The battle was no longer a slaughter of the Israelites. It was a rout of the Canaanites. The foot soldiers had the mobility that the elite charioteers had lost in the mire. Seeing his invincible army destroyed by the mud and the sword, Sisera did the unthinkable. He abandoned his men and fled into the wilderness like a common thief. From the mountainside, Deborah watched the victory. She knew that this was not just a military win, but a spiritual cleansing of the land that had been oppressed. By the end of the day, not one man of Sisera's army was left standing in the valley. The iron that had terrified them was now just scrap in the mud. But Sisera was still alive. He ran toward the settlement of the Kenites, hoping to find refuge with a family he thought was an ally. His flight was far from over. Exhausted and broken, Sisera finally reached the encampment of Heber the Kenite. He believed he was entering a place of safety because his king was at peace. At the entrance stood Jael, Heber's wife. In that culture, a woman's tent was her private domain, a place where no male stranger would dare enter without invitation. "Come in, my lord," Jael said to him. "Come in. Do not be afraid." She was offering him the sacred protection of her roof, a gesture of extreme peace. Sisera was so weary he could barely speak. He asked for a little water to quench his thirst, but Jael decided to give him something much more potent. Instead of water, Jael opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink fit for a king. In their tradition, warm milk was used to bring deep sleep. Sisera felt secure. He told Jael to stand at the door and lie to anyone who came looking for him. He thought a woman's word would be his shield. As the commander slept, the Spirit of the Lord moved upon Jael. She realized that the peace of her land depended on the end of this man's cruelty. With the strength of a woman defending her future, Jael struck. In one decisive moment, the general who had terrorized thousands was brought low by a simple household tool. Barak had pursued Sisera all the way to the Kenite camp. He was ready for a final confrontation, but Jael met him with news that the war was over. "Come," Jael said, "and I will show you the man you are looking for." Barak entered and saw the prophecy of Deborah fulfilled to the very letter. When Deborah and Barak reunited on the hills of Ephraim, the weight of 20 years of oppression had finally lifted. The prophecy was complete, and the land was free. The news of Sisera's fall spread from village to village. The people who had once hidden in caves emerged into the sunlight, their hearts bursting with a new song. Deborah knew that a victory this great must be remembered forever. She began to compose a song that would capture the heart of the miracle for generations to come. On that day, Deborah and Barak sang a song of praise. This wasn't just music, it was a spiritual decree, marking the end of the old era. "Hear this, you kings. Listen, you rulers. Even I will sing to the Lord. I will praise the Lord, the God of Israel, in the presence of all." The song described the very moment God stepped out from the mountains. It told of how the earth shook and the heavens poured down rain at his presence. In the days before Deborah arose, the highways were deserted. Travelers stayed to the winding bypaths because the main roads were ruled by the shadows of their enemies. Villagers in Israel would not fight. They held back until Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel. Leadership is often simply a form of motherhood. The song honored the tribes who risked their lives on the heights of the field. It was a reminder that when God calls, the greatest honor is to show up. But the song was not just for the heroes of the battle. It was a witness against those who stayed behind. A call for all of Israel to be unified. The song then turned to a woman who was not an Israelite by birth, but a hero by choice. Deborah sang of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. "Most blessed of tent-dwelling women is Jael," Deborah sang. She described the milk, the silver bowl, and the decisive moment when the oppressor's reign was ended forever. In a powerful moment of poetic irony, Deborah sang of Sisera's mother waiting at home. She looked through her window, wondering why her son's chariot was so long. "So may all your enemies perish, Lord. But may all who love you be like the sun when it rises in its strength." The song was finished. With the war won, Deborah did not retire. She knew that lasting peace required a generation that knew the law of God as well as they knew the battle. Because of the justice Deborah established, the economy of the land flourished. For 40 years, an entire generation, the land of Israel enjoyed a rest that was legendary. Barak remained a faithful leader alongside Deborah. He had learned that true courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward when the prophetess speaks. She became a living library of God's faithfulness. In ancient times, the mother in Israel was the one who kept the traditions and the truth alive for children. The story of Deborah was told every night in every home. It taught the children that God can use anyone, a woman, a farmer, or a nomad, to save a nation. Her legacy was not built on the iron she defeated, but on the peace she planted. Deborah had finished her race, leaving Israel better than she found it. As the decades passed, Deborah saw a generation grow up in a land where peace was the normal way of life. The sound of war was a distant memory. She taught them that the victory belonged to God, but the choice to be brave belonged to them. She was molding the next leaders of a free Israel. She was truly a mother in Israel. Her influence was not found in a scepter or a crown, but in the hearts of those she mentored and loved. Deborah's race was finished. She left behind a nation that had been restored to its true identity, a people who walked in the light of God's justice. The story of Deborah is more than a history lesson. It is a blueprint for leadership. It shows us that one person's yes can liberate thousands.
Today, the spirit of Deborah lives on in every heart that refuses to accept oppression, and every voice that speaks truth in the face of fear.
This was the era of the judges, a time of great struggle, but also a time when God showed that he would never abandon those who seek him. Deborah the judge, Barak the general, and Jael the nomad. Three very different people, used by one God to achieve an impossible victory for their people. The earth remembers the triumphs of faith. Even the river that swept away the iron chariots now flows with the peace that Deborah prayed over the land.
Are you waiting for a leader to arise? Perhaps the leader the world is waiting for is already within you, waiting for your yes to God.
May the courage of Deborah fill your heart. May the peace of her land be your portion. And may you always remember whose hands hold your future. This is the legacy of Deborah, a story of faith, a song of victory, and a peace that lasted for generations. Her story is now part of yours.
If the story of Deborah inspired you today, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs a reminder of the power of courage and faith.
Join the conversation in the comments below. What part of Deborah's journey spoke to your heart the most? We love hearing how these stories touch your lives. Until next time, remember, you are seen, you are loved, and your story is held in the faithful hands of God. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next story.